Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting episode of the Jade Mechanic Podcast. I am just sitting here with a good friend of mine from L1 Diagnostics. Some people are maybe familiar. He's one of the other known to be Zachs. So, Mr. Zach Cypert, how are you, bud?
Oh, doing pretty good today.
What's your day to day like? Are you one of the lucky ones that's out? You're doing mobile too?
So not anymore. I was mobile for the first 2 years that I worked for L1.
Right.
Just out doing the daily run around. And when Kreider, other Zach, parted with us for a little bit, I ended up going back to the shop.
Right.
And then he came back. Now he's on the road. So we kind of just traded places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he went to the world domination of auto repair.
Yeah.
Years.
Yeah.
Diesel.
Strokers Diesel. Yeah.
Right on. So let's get some of your background story. Like, how did you guys, just before we start recording, you said it was kind of a neat, like, you're very blessed to be there, and a neat, like you kind of said, it was almost like fate. Explain that to me.
Well, I guess if we want to start from the beginning, I really didn't, automotive wasn't like I wanted to jump into it kind of thing. I was going to IT school originally.
Okay.
And I hated that the whole time, but I just was trying to, truck through it.
Yeah.
And while I was in IT school, I worked at O'Reilly's selling parts, like, every other technician starts out, I guess.
Yeah.
And I had a buddy that worked there that knew a guy that had a shop, and I ended up working for that guy after work, doing, whatever piddly stuff he had that he didn't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then my first actual shop that I worked for, and we were kind of a day-to-day maintenance / performance shop. We did a lot of LS swap work and LS work. Well, LM7 swap type stuff. But
break down for me what you define as like a shade tree shop, like just like.
I guess I wouldn't say shade tree. I say that term because I still kind of do work like that at home, but it was just some dude with a barn out back of his house doing work, and he needed help, and he worked at the dealer during the day, so we worked on stuff at his place while he was at work, and then he'd come home and work on stuff, and then it was just kind of an unorganized mess.
Right. Decent there though?
It not really. It was I think I was making like $10 an hour flat rate, whatever per job he wanted to pay me, and it was $10.99, so it was just whatever. And then there wasn't a whole lot of work, so it was just kind of hit and miss, obviously, because it's out the back of his house. It wasn't like it was a steady flow.
It seems funny to me though that he'd have enough workload on that he would think somebody in.
Well, I realized what it was he was taking the work in, but he really wasn't working on them. He was paying us really like nothing, and then making money off of us, basically, is all he was doing. Which is, granted, that that's kind of business. You don't own the business, you make money off of it. That's how it works. But
you'd think though that him being a dealer tech right during the daytime, and then coming home, and that was like he got into where he thought that made sense. I don't.
Yeah, it was weird. I don't know.
Yeah,
he was more or less just a lube tech. I found out later he wasn't really an actual, maintenance tech, just a oil change guy mostly.
He couldn't really teach you a ton about.
No, not really. What I learned, I learned a lot of my stuff nut and bolt wise, if you will, just tinkering on stuff from when I was a kid till I used to take stuff apart and never put it back together, or just figure out how it works, kind of thing. That kind of mindset. And then started out from there, went to the performance shop, if you will, and we did a lot of that. We did a lot of car lot work at that shop, so we had a lot of those buy here, pay here places that just sent us a bunch of work.
Yeah.
And then we did a lot of engine swap stuff into old iron, updated 5.3, 4.8 type stuff into, 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s rides.
Nice. Yeah.
And I didn't really, I learned a lot there. I did, for sure. Not really from the owner or anybody working there, other than one old man. I did work with an old guy named Glenn. I did learn a lot from Glenn. He probably will say he didn't teach me anything, but he did. I learned some stuff from him. And then I wanted to do some training because we didn't have anybody at the shop that really knew anything diag wise. And I was originally an IT school student, and I was really interested in, the electronics and how everything works. And so I did like a lot of other guys do, Scanner Danner,
Yeah.
Pine Hollow, watching Ivan, and
Yeah.
bought Scanner Danner's book, go through it and apply what you're reading. And I needed a scope, so I had to go buy a scope because shop owner was like, we don't need a scope, He brought me like a handheld single channel Mac and like an old Mac
Yeah.
scope that ran on D cell batteries. Like it did things,
Yeah.
but it wasn't. It
No.
really wasn't useful.
Yeah.
So I just, started out, bought a 8-channel Handtech for whatever they went for, $100 or whatever, and kind of taught myself from there. But I did a lot of ATG training, so bought a lot of ATG books and then watched their webinars. And
They're an avenue that doesn't get discussed enough, unfortunately, right? And I really,
I love ATG. I mean, I've got like, I don't know, 15, 20 of their manuals back here. I'd keep all of my manuals. I've got like a bookcase of automotive manuals.
I'm the same.
And so I kind of just had to figure it out because I didn't have anybody that knew anything about it. So it's kind of, car came in, they're like, you got to fix it. So and I've never been flat rate per se, other than at the behind the house barn shop.
Right.
I was hourly. When I was going to school, I decided I didn't want to do IT anymore. And I started at the automotive program here in Okmulgee, was just south of where I live. They have a it's Oklahoma State University Institute of Technology, so OSU IT. And they have some pretty in-depth automotive programs. Several of them are branded programs, so like Ford Asset, Toyota T10, and Chrysler and all that. I went to their independent program per se. It's called ProTech, but it was a 2-year program, trimesters. So you're on for 8 weeks, I think it was, and then you're off for like 3 or 4, and then back on. I got my associates in automotive for whatever that's worth, but did that. Had to learn some stuff. I convinced the shop owner at the last shop I was at to pay me my 40 hours a week, even though I was only at the shop 20. And I'm grateful for that. He did pay me for that. It's not like it was a completely crap hole of a shop, if you will. It was a decent shop. It was managed kind of poorly, and then I got stuck trying to run the dang thing for a year and a half while I was managing it, ordering parts, talking to customers, working on parts, diag, wrenching. I was basically like I own the place, but not getting paid for that. And it was an hourly gig, not really, no overtime or anything, just whatever. Mostly it was just salary. Nobody ever clocked in. They just paid us 40 hours a week, and we went home.
So when you were coming up, can you remember, like, for instance, a specific car that taught you a specific lesson with a specific trying to think, like,
Man, all of them. There was one that I remember specifically from that last shop that it royally kicked my butt. It was it was like a 12 or 13 Equinox. I put a heater core in it, or not a heater core. I put an HVAC box in it because the doors were broken in the HVAC box. And we just bought a whole box and put it in. And like any Chevy dash job, it comes out piece by piece, all the way down to the frame. And I put it back together, and the radio wouldn't work. And I was like, it's got touchscreen, wouldn't light up, no lights, no nothing. Backup camera wouldn't work, anything like that. I spent like, I feel like it was like 2 weeks trying to figure out what was wrong with that stinking radio. And this was when I was like maybe a year and a half in.
Okay.
Something like that, I think. Maybe 2 years. I still was super green. I trying to do diag on something like that with, no prior knowledge. It was rough. I took the whole car back apart, dash and everything came out like 3 or 4 times trying to figure out what connector I missed, what was going on, whatever. ended up being that there was it was like an audio. I think it was kind of like a Fakra style audio cable or whatever. Ended up pinching it between the dash frame and the firewall somehow. I don't even know how that cable reached. It didn't make sense to me. Um, as far as diag goes, I guess it really wasn't much of a diag. It was a bunch of me chasing my tail, but that kind of got me really interested more into it because it's like, what the world is this cable? Like, I don't know how to. It's not just a wire, you know. You can't just go checking it, and um, it was more of a how does it work kind of thing. How do I figure this out? And the whole time, you know, I didn't really have any help from anybody. The owner had his things he's got to do, and none of the techs in the shop. They were all the other techs were flat rate. I was the only hourly guy, so everybody despised me anyway. Right. And so nobody wanted to really help because they weren't going to get paid for it. And I get that, you know.
But they wouldn't that job that you were in the middle of anyway.
No, yeah. They didn't want it. Nobody wanted to touch that. If some kid come in here and took it apart and put it back together, now it doesn't work. Man, I wouldn't want to touch it either now. Yeah. You know, doing what we do, half this stuff it's stinking nightmares. No, I mean, not really. It is in the moment sometimes, but when you're done, you're like, oh, well, that was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. You know?
Yeah, you always
psych yourself out.
I still do that, man, all the time.
Oh yeah, constantly.
Oh God, right?
Yeah,
like you just shut up, get out of your own head,
right?
And an hour later, you're so close to the end, or the hour later, you already got it. You're like, not at all.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder how we figure out some of the stuff that we do. It's like, you know, most shops won't go into that kind of stuff, and they just ship them to us. And you know, it kind of makes sense per se. Their workflow. If they've got, you know, some tech stuck on a car for 3 days, you know, they're not making any money on that guy. He's just burning time. It's cheaper to just ship it over to us and pay the bill and have that guy making money the whole time. Which is generally what happens. That's why we get a lot of the cars we do.
Right.
Shops.
So what do you? A lot of it, like, because I know, you know, the standard thing is everybody goes, oh, you know, how many other techs are like, you know, how many times I go in and it's a missing fuse.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, it's not that's not every day for you guys, right? Like,
no, maybe. And I joke about it being like, you know, 80%. It's not. It's like maybe, I want to say maybe a couple a week or a couple every 2-3 weeks. You know, it just depends on the month, really. And a lot of it kind of depends on the shop the car came from. You know, if it comes from, you know, there's a couple shops I know. It's like if it comes in from them, I'm like, well, we're going to check the basics here because there's, you know, they generally it's something simple. And with our customer base, you know, we service, you know, 1,000 shops around Tulsa and surrounding areas. And we kind of have good relationships with most of them. And they're pretty good about telling us, you know, what they've done down to, you know, what they thought was wrong. You know, they like to explain everything like, oh, we thought it was this or whatever, but they'll be pretty detailed about it. And a lot of times you can do like a visual and just do a once over on it. And then, oh, well, they left this ground loose or they put this ground over a painted bracket or something. And
so I was going to ask, is that where a lot of this stuff happens, is after a major component change that customers making a call? Or because we always think it's like they bought it at an auction and they went to town on it and they couldn't get it and now they call you? Or is it like because I saw, you know, you probably follow Sherwood and Royalty.
Yeah.
They just put up a video, right, where they're talking about it had been at the dealer replaced an engine, and then
that one. Yeah, I just watched that one. Yeah.
I just watched it too, right? And I'm looking at that going, okay, first, that's really embarrassing for the industry that, you know, the guy didn't check that it's something really simple. I don't want to ruin the surprise for everybody. Right. But it's something really simple, and would have found it in probably half an hour if we'd have just, like we said, step back. But I can also understand from that standpoint of whatever. I want to, in my heart of hearts, feel that like that technician just kind of like went, well, hey, you guys are going to pay me to put another engine in this thing, but you're not necessarily going to pay me to diagnose it. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do the engine thing. And then it finally winds up. I'm not excusing that. Right. But I mean, you probably see scenarios like that all the time where we'd have just paid the technician, you know, a little bit more time to go and find the problem.
Right.
Probably could find it, you
It
know?
actually, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, there's it, I won't say that that has happened to us in the way that that went down, but we have cars come in, whether it's a customer or a shop, and we give them a roundabout starting point of what it's going to cost to diagnose the vehicle up front. Like every car that comes through gets a minimum of $400 approval up front. Now, if it depends on what the issue is. Now, if it comes into the shop and I'm looking at it and it's a dead no com problem, we're immediately making a phone call like, hey, sorry guys, this is going to be more than what we initially told you. And what we tell them on the phone or when they drop them off isn't necessarily what it's going to end up being. It might be less. If it's just a simple me coming in with a test light and poking and prodding, finding some stuff, usually that's about 300 is what we do. But we have people come in. I know I got off topic a little bit, but we have people come in. They get the upfront, 400 minimum approval, and then they're like, "Oh, well, that's just to look at it." I'm like, well, I'm not just going to walk outside and go, "Yep, there it is." It just, it's there. I'm looking at it, and they think that, like everybody else, with their diag charges per se, that we're just going to hook up the big scan tool and pull the code and go, "Yep, you need a brain box," and then they see the price and they take it somewhere else. They're like, "Well, I got a buddy that can do it cheaper." Cool, that's fine. And then they end up coming back, and that's generally what happens. Is a lot of these will come in, they'll kind of balk at the price, they'll leave, they'll come back after cheaper guy up the road, buddy, friend, whatever, put who knows how many parts on the car, and then I don't know. It just turns into a headache on most of those cars because they've already replaced all these parts with junk parts, and
Yeah, put in a module that will not work, or so on and so forth, and then
right, and now you're sifting through the weeds trying to figure out what was the main problem. Like, they just installed all these other crap parts. Is it am I chasing the problem now from one of these, or am I actually looking at the main issue that they came in with for originally?
Yeah.
But we don't see a lot of I don't know, I won't say a lot of, but most of the cars that come to us are generally just, hey, it's been doing this for a long time and nobody can figure it out or whatever. We do get a percentage of them that just had major work done and now it has a problem. But that amount of work is less than generally just the normal everyday stuff. We do, and we do get some auction work too, like you're talking about, and
I want to think that when a shop, sorry to interrupt, I want to think that when a lot of shop out there, when they go in and do like a transmission replacement or an engine replacement or something, and then 1 week, 1 month, 2 weeks, 3 weeks goes by, 3 months goes by, and the customer has this, weird electrical problem. I want to think that a lot of shops don't immediately like slam the door in their face and say, "Hey, it's been 3 months. Sorry, I believe that most of them do tend to take like the opportunity to look at it. I think where they might drop the ball, though, and I want to hope on like Sherwood's example, is that they bring it in, but they don't pay the tech, and then that's, or we're going back to the flat rate conversation, right? Or what is it? Well, it's not even happening right now. How much time do I spend on that?
Right.
So because that we can, when you watch the video, you're going to see it wasn't a completely all the time thing. It was a pretty relatively common thing to happen, but to necessarily catch the cause, God, I don't want to give it away, but I should and be plain. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. So it's like, I always want to feel like it's not people are slamming the door in the face of the customer going, "Sorry, we only did this and there's no way that can happen." Because you and I know that like the weirdest, wonkiest things that you can put an engine in and then the radio not work is a very real scenario, right?
Yeah.
You can touch something doing that. Yeah, it's
absolutely. Yeah. Most of the, we get a lot of referrals from other shops. Like, they just want to wash their hands of it. And then they give the customer our info and they make it to us. And a lot of those are, they had this problem. They took it to the shop put, they replaced all the things. They replaced the plugs, the coils, the plug wires. They put an engine in it or whatever, and they couldn't fix it, and so they come to us, and then sometimes it ends up being something simple, and a lot of times if it's a shop that I have a decent relationship with that I know won't be kind of crabby if I call them, I'll just call them and let them know, like, hey man, this is what was wrong with it, and we kind of I like to keep them in the loop, because if it was me and the car left,
Yeah.
and I don't know what's wrong with it, I like to find out.
Sure.
I don't like being in the dark sometimes. Most of the time, there's times where the car comes in. I just don't really care about this car. I want this thing to go away, and that happens. But we got to fix them.
Right.
If they're a paying customer, they got to be fixed. They want their car fixed, and
yeah. Now, we were talking earlier about our friend Jeff and, obviously Zach and Liz. How much of some of the more difficult ones, is it a team effort? Like, are you guys can you talk with each other and kind of say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Like,
right. So we actually have not like an internal L1 chat, but we do have a Facebook group chat of all the L1 guys, and then a bunch of our industry our peers. It's the Midwest Technicians group chat. And if we get something weird that we're struggling on, we kind of just throw it up there, and then the other 15 guys in the group kind of just, peer in on it and tell us what they may have experience with, or something to check that we didn't think to, because we have those blinders on,
Yeah, for sure.
But that does happen. Not, I don't know, it's maybe a couple cars a week that I get one in that I'm like, man, I don't really know what to do past what I've already done, because we don't know everything. There's not some knowledge base of just everything that everybody knows that you can just plug in and download. But yeah, that does happen, and it's great that it works that way, because otherwise, I don't know how some of these cars would get fixed.
Well, that's I think it's a tool that more shops need to, because this where I just started working at, the two gentlemen that I work with both came from another shop, and they had that kind of chat all the time, which was
right Right.
I could be petty enough that I would like, shut the hell up. Like,
right.
Why is the advisor in the chat when it's the technicians? But you know what I mean? But I think it's something that I think more people need to think about going forward, using that chat function in tackling any issue within the shop day to day, because I think it's such an efficient, effective manner that instead of going out when somebody's got a phone to their ear and going, hey, what up, blah,
right.
Like, do that. It's documented, it's recorded. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can say, hey, I did mention this.
I like it for the guys on the road. Jeff and other Zach Kreider are both on the road, and I mean, you're out there on the road. You're kind of in the mindset of, I got to get this done because I've got 5 other cars I got to go do, and there's drive time, and it takes a lot of time doing mobile. And if you get stuck on one, you either have to say, hey, I've got to come back, we've got to reschedule, or if someone in the group, has seen this issue before, which, or has a better testing method for some problem, and you can find that, within a couple minutes by posting that up, it's super valuable. That way you can just, get done with the job and move on to the next one. Because a lot of these shops, they don't want you to reschedule. They really want you to fix it when you're there. And we show up to look at the car. They already know what they're looking at for, service call and everything. And if we have to come back out, it's just understood that if we have to come back out, it's not going to be the same price. It's going to be more. And in that role, it's kind of hard to have that discussion, because they're like, well, you couldn't figure it out. I'm like, well, you couldn't either. And I'm here as a consultant, and that's, granted, yes, we're diagnosing the car, but technically if you couldn't fix it and we're struggling with it, or there's something going on there, then that's just what it is. It takes time. We got to drive back out here. It's gas. It's, if you get stuck in traffic, for he does like 4 hours of drive time a day, maybe more sometimes, because the traffic in his area is outrageous.
Yeah, that's what he always says to me.
Yeah. He'll be stuck in traffic for 45 minutes, sending us voice messages that are half hour long. You got to sit there and put them on, ultra speed so you can listen to the whole thing. But
Now, he tells me lots of times, like he'll share with me, he'll in one of his rants, he'll be like, "You wouldn't believe the shop that I just went into." Like, do you?
yeah.
But does it run the whole gamut, or can you say, Zach, that there's a particularly type of shop that you go to a lot?
Man, it just depends. We've got both ends of the spectrum. Like we've got some shops that are just like the shops. The shop is clean. Like there's this transmission shop that we service in Tulsa that their floors are immaculate. The walls are clean. The owner puts signs on the walls. They literally say, "Your hands are dirty. Do not touch the walls." And his shop is super clean. He's got good techs working there. They're all there's like one diag guy or two diag guys that work there. The rest of them are all R&R techs, and they've got a couple guys that look at cars, and then the rest of them just fix them. And they've got all the state of the art equipment that keep they got a floor scrubber, and they've got all these hot flush machines and all kinds of equipment to just do the best that they can. And then we've got shops that are just, I had one shop that I swore the floor was dirt because it like the floor literally looked like I just walked into the horse barn.
Yeah.
Like I was amazed. And then that shop sold, and I came back in after it sold, and the floor was concrete. And I was like, so confused because there was actually concrete under the dirt. And there's a spectrum. There's some that you just don't want to work on cars in the shop. And when I was mobile, there were some shops I just refused to touch a car in their shop. Like, you got to put it in the parking lot. I'm not working in that mess. And
do dealers call you guys?
Yeah, quite often. Yeah, I'm not mobile anymore, so I don't get to see all the mobile calls. But we do get quite a few dealer. Not a lot of them are diag work. Some of them are. Most of them are programming or ADOS cows. Because a lot of the dealers do their used car side, and so they'll call us out to come update a module on a line that they don't service. And then we do a lot of ADOS cows for specifically a couple dealerships that do a lot of glass work. And so we get a lot of ADOS cows for them. But it's, ADOS again is pretty particular. So it's kind of, you got to pick and choose what you can do there. Because I like my floors to be level. I like everything to be perfect. Which granted, a lot of times, they have to be.
Yeah.
In 99.9% of the case, if you have an issue mobile, it's usually your environment. We do have some issues that aren't environmental problems. They're, the car's broke, or we show up and there's a module not plugged in or whatever. But yeah, we do get a lot of dealerships that call us.
So when you're at the shop here, everything's brought to you, right?
Yep.
Like you guys, how do I ask that? So is a lot of stuff that are local, and they drop it off and expect it back, and you see, like Ivan, for instance, like stuff will get toted from out of state.
Yeah, yeah. We've had some stuff come in from out of state, some stuff from Kansas, and they'll come down here. But for the most part, it's mostly local stuff. We do some module work, so we have some stuff mailed in for module work, but primarily the car drop off stuff is local.
Yeah.
At least local to Oklahoma. I mean, we get some stuff from an hour or 2 hours away. They'll tow them in, but that's not super often. It's maybe once every 3-4 months we'll get one towed from 2-3 hours away.
Like Jeff always says, he talks about like there's so many shops in Oklahoma, and yet most of them don't seem to be good places to work. You know what I mean? Which is, he says, is really adding to this kind of this enterprise that Keith has been able to.
Right.
Do you think is there a fundamental reason for why that is? Like, is it just an attitude thing, or?
Honestly, I don't really know. Most of the shops, I don't know. There's a lot of techs that we see around when I was mobile that would bounce shops a lot. So it's kind of hard to say if it's actually the shop or the tech. But most of the techs that I see when I was mobile anyway weren't, they weren't. I don't know. I compare myself to other diet guys, but there's great R&R guys. There's wonderful R&R guys, and I don't want to say that they weren't great techs because they were probably phenomenal R&R guys. But I'm not sure on how to answer that question really, because there's a lot of shops that I wouldn't work at. A lot of it is just some of those shops are just management, if you will.
Okay.
And
that's kind of what I was getting at, right? Because
yeah,
it seems to be like the trend is nobody will pay except for a flat rate, right? And there's
yeah,
just, I know we've talked about it. There's just me as a technician, I'll never go back to that for any month in the world. You could pay me $100 an hour.
right.
I still believe that it's
Yeah,
counterintuitive to where this industry should go and counterintuitive to
yeah,
my mental
yeah,
well-being. I could make more money and I would still, that way of making me feel like,
right.
there was a TikTok posted, he's how many days into the new year and he only has 14 hours logged.
Mm,
And he's at a dealer and it's like he just says, and of course he's mad because it's going back to what we were talking about. He's mad because customers are bringing in with these complaints that they can't, don't always happen and can't duplicate all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, I can sympathize with that frustration that you want to lash out at the customers. I've been there. But here's the reality. It's the process of where you work and the policy that says that they're just, you're going down these rabbit holes or, you're donating your time unpaid because you're choosing to. Put your foot down and say, hey, start in 2025, I'm not going to, and watch what happens. Now, you might get kicked, right out of the door.
Well,
But I mean, imagine, Zach, if like everybody put their hand up on the first day of 2025 at the shop and said, and your flat rate and said, no, I'm not doing that for that. What are they going to do? Fire all of you? Like we know,
right.
and there's one tech, one shop out of 10 that will fire everyone.
Right.
The reality is they're not, right? And that's how process changes. That's how things start to change. Is it takes a unified, collective.
Yeah,
no, I will
absolutely.
accept that.
Right.
My heart breaks for those guys. I'll never do it again. I know exactly where they're coming from. But.
Yeah. If I had to leave L1, I'd go work a union job somewhere or something. Like I'd go work for the American Airlines. They're always hiring over here. I got a buddy that works American, and he, they're, it's insane the stuff that they put up with and get paid for what they're doing, and all he works on is ground equipment. He doesn't work on cars anymore. He just works on tugs and stuff.
Yeah.
And they're all diesel, mechanical, injected, whatever, it's all nut and bolt. You don't really, there's some diag involved, but
it's pretty
you've got an electronic shut off solenoid or something, like the linkage doesn't go forward far enough to shut the engine off, or
the golf carts. For
God's sake. The metering valve isn't opening far enough. Like I don't know. Yeah, there's, I don't know. I wouldn't work flat rate ever. I've never been flat rate. I've worked with a lot of guys that were, and just listen to them complain. That's just the gist of the whole problem. I think is nobody's really happy flat rate. I know some guys that are, and it's because they're just burning hours, and it's because they're just fed constantly, and that can work that way. If you are literally just like Zeb does, sets the car in front of you, you work on the car, the next one shows up next to it, you work on that car, they clean up from your last one, you don't have to clean the shop, you just work on the car.
Yeah.
And you're not doing anything else but turning wrench. And that would work. And it does, obviously, because, we see the success that Zeb has.
Yeah. My biggest is like when I was talking with Cecil, and Cecil was kept, talking, and it really made some sense. Too many shops think that the flat rate thing works, but they don't realize how many bricks they're putting up to really make it work. You know what I mean? Like it works a little bit, but it works at the expense of the tech.
Right.
And all of a sudden, if you start to see somebody like Zeb or other people talk about, well, I make it work because I remove all these bricks. I do so much more that other shops would expect the tech to do. I do it.
Right.
So the tech is only putting tools on the car or truck.
Right.
That's it.
And if you look at it from the top view down, the techs are the ones turning all the money in there.
Yeah.
If those techs are not turning a wrench, they're not really making any money for anybody. So if you can keep them fed, then great. It works, and then they've got a bunch of work and they're happy. And if they're, like was it the complaint that me and Jeff were seeing on I think it was the Hangout page the other day. Somebody was talking about their tech's not cleaning the shop or whatever.
Yes.
And I'm like, man, I mean, I get it. I'm hourly. I clean the shop. That's my job. I clean the shop. I'm paid to clean the shop, and I can't remember the actual wording, but well, the flat rate covers them cleaning their shop or whatever. I'm like, where does that breakdown at in the book? Like, all data doesn't have a line item for clean shop at 3/10 or whatever. Like,
exactly. And that's bullshit. I mean, it's the same thing saying, like, they used to laugh. They used to get mad at us at the dealership when we do all these CVTs, right?
Yeah.
You would literally put it back in the crate and shove it to the end of your bay, and that's where it stood.
Right.
And they said, no, you got to drag that. And I don't have to drag that down to that's not in the book.
Right.
Well, it's just expected. Okay. Well, that guy over there, he's got 3 of them piled up, and you're still giving him another job to pull in.
Right.
I think we're all going to try and do that. Right. And then of course you got a big mess and everything else. That conversation just made me laugh.
Well,
if you're doing it right, you can hire somebody then to just go behind them and clean them up. And then but that's the thing. Everyone goes, why should I have to? Because you've decided to pay them this way. That's why you have to. It's that in a nutshell. I hate it.
They're not going to lose money either way, as long as they're billing what they need to be profitable.
Yeah.
If their labor rate is $65 an hour, then I see why they're complaining about it, and I don't know. They like to complain about that, but it doesn't make any sense. I don't get it, but we also work in a little bit of a different shop environment, but granted, I see that. And if they want to talk about, what's expected of you, well, did you give them an outline of their job duties when you hired them? Because if that wasn't in writing, then I'm sorry, but that your expectations are nothing if you didn't give them that up front. Like at L1, we all have, and I got them laminated because I wanted to make sure that it's available if I need to double check things. But we have our outline job duties. Like this is my position. This is what my job entails. Granted, it's me and Josh in the shop, and we just do whatever we got to do to keep the shop clean and cars rolling in and out. But we've got everything in writing. Like, I need to know what you want of me if I'm going to work here. And if you have expectations that I don't know about, that's going to have to be talked about. So you need to sit down and discuss this kind of stuff. And a lot of these guys just hired techs all willy nilly. Like, they either call the last shop they were at, or they call the shop that the tech put down as a reference that wasn't the last shop because it didn't work out well over there.
That's right.
And or they don't call at all. They just hire them, and then that's it. Like, this is what you're making. Here's your flag sheet book. You fill this out, you turn it in at the end of the week, and that's what you get paid. And nobody ever sits down and talks about, expected duties in
right.
Yeah. Oh, you're a technician. Yeah. Well, it's expected of you. Well, if that, if that was expected of me, it'd be nice to know.
Right. Oh, we expect you here 15 minutes before, 8 o'clock.
Right.
Okay. That's not written down. How's that working out for pay? Right.
Yeah.
And everybody goes, what? That's such a 15 minutes a day times how many days at the end of the week that you're unpaid. We can, any tech out there can do their math. That's over an hour right there. An hour paid, $35. That's $35 I gave you. Like, let's just keep it real, how does that work out to get paid? Like, and everybody wants to just sit there and go, it's because I said so. Well, I can tell you that, look, that as a young kid, it never worked for me.
Right.
It's just too mouthy or whatever, where it's like, okay, give me another reason than that one because it doesn't work. We're at an impasse here. Let's talk about it. A suggestion that doesn't have then, anything written down is, let's have the referendum then that puts it into processes to be what's expected. Right. Otherwise, it's just a suggestion to me. It's not an expectation.
Right.
Right. Yeah. You can expect it, but really you're only suggesting it to me until we make it policy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how life works.
Yeah. And a lot, that's the complaint is, they get these posts on the pages, and it's, what are your policies? Nobody has policies. They just run a shop because that's all they've ever known. You just run the shop. Like, well, this isn't 1950 anymore. Everybody's,
Yeah,
we're not working on points and condensers,
that's
and
right. And I'm not a
there's a lot
dirty.
of processes that
Yeah,
need to be discussed. I
I'm not
feel
a
like,
dirty tech. Like I try to keep pretty clean and all that kind of
yeah,
stuff. Like I'm not one of those guys that like will open up the drain cock and not have the drain bucket there.
yeah,
I can
yeah,
tell you that I worked with guys that did
right,
because they just were like so fast. It's like they didn't care that went on the floor. It was the new stuff was sold. Turn the
yep,
water on. Down. Done. One less thing they had to do.
yep,
So I'm not trying to say, but so everybody that goes, oh, they're all pigs. I could show you, some pigs, and it's like I challenged that guy when he said, oh, the guy that turns the most hours is also the cleanest in the shop. Okay,
yeah. I got a hard time believing that, to be honest.
I do too, right? Because if you're gonna be like, I try to make it a habit as like before, I pull the car out, like I get the rotor boxes out of the way, I get the trash off the floor. We don't have a lot of room,
Right,
but I mean, if they're sitting there in front of my toolbox till the end of day and that's driving somebody crazy, pick them up. I
right,
got another car to bring in. Like,
yep,
just yeah,
yep,
I'm straight time, so we all do it when we nobody's.
yep.
But this idea that it's like if you tried to tell me before you drink that cup of coffee, Mister Flat Rate Guy, and I have no word for you, pick that up. I'd be like, I'll pick it up when I feel like picking it up.
Yeah, I don't blame you. No,
So,
no, I'm going to be honest. I'm not the cleanest tech.
huh?
I have my moments.
Yeah.
I just pick all my tools up and I set them on the cart, and
Yes.
we'll just go one by one and clean them up, and put them away when I'm done. But but I get paid to clean the shop now, so it just kind of, that's I don't get the argument. It's flat rates expected.
Uh-huh. What's some of
Whatever.
the other things that you see when we talk about the shop owners and they seem to be hitting impasses with their technicians? Like not just the cleanness, but you and I kind of joke back and forth about some of the stuff that gets posted, and Jeff
Hmm.
is fantastic with
Oh
throwing.
man, Jeff's
But
great.
what are some of the other topics of interest that you see? Like where is it? How do we meld some of these topics, conversations to where they're resolved?
Hmm, that's a good question.
Like punctuality is another one that I see. Guys.
And yeah, they have a problem with that, but if they're flat rate, I'm sorry. I just, show up when the doors are open. I don't see the argument there. I get it. Be there when work is there and the doors are open, and be ready to work. If they're a couple minutes late, I'm sorry. Whatever. They're they're not flagging an hour for the 6 minutes they were late or
That's
whatever.
right.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't own the shop, so I don't have a problem with punctuality really as a major issue, unless you're like, man, half hour late every day, then we'll have a discussion. But 10 minutes here and there, I'm not. I don't. I don't know how to fix that. I don't see their arguments. There's no way for me to say anything that's going to change anybody's mind on that one.
You wear earbuds?
I don't, mostly because me and Josh listen to the same music, and there are no customers in our shop, and our doors are shut all the time, and it's air conditioned. So we turn the radio on, and that's where it's at. If the radio is so loud that you can't hear me from hollering at you from across the shop, we'll turn it down. But um, Josh, he likes his earbuds, even if he's pulling the engine apart and like trying to put everything back together and concentrate, he'll put his earbuds in and work. Generally, it's one. I don't sometimes two, but he's got these open air buds that you can hear the surroundings. And if I can say his name and he'll hear me.
Yeah. See, I found the last place I worked, and again, I'm not like where I walk in and it's immediately like we're going to listen to what I want to listen to, because otherwise, like I don't come in the old man and go, it's two types of music, Western, and that's it, right?
Right.
Your crap, but. I
Right.
find that the young generation seems to be where they can have some really loud music going on and they can still function well.
Yeah.
And it starts to become a real distraction. And then I have to have that conversation where it's like, okay, your music at that volume is really starting to make it hard for me to concentrate on what I'm trying to look
Right.
at on this car. Can we come to an impasse or something about, can we turn that down? Have I threatened to smash speakers before? Yep. Because I get warnings that like your music sucks, whatever's coming out of the lyrics suck, the beat sucks, whatever.
Right.
And I think you should share it with no one and keep it.
That happens.
Had that conversation, right? And it's like, I'm not trying to be the heavy, but I was just watching that conversation. And it's like, I don't want to work where there's no music and
Yeah.
only shop noise.
Yeah.
But I mean, I want to be,
No.
if we can't get to a, you like classic rock and you like country and western and you like, gangster rap, we're going to have to probably look at an earbud policy, because I think
Right.
at the end of the day, everybody's got to be productive
Yeah.
and getting along. Is it a safety thing? It can be, for sure.
Yeah. I think it
But
depends on the shop.
yeah,
If you're doing like a lot of heavy line or something and someone's lifting an engine and, with sketchy work ethic, if you will, yeah, that might be a problem. But I don't know. We don't, in our shop, it's never been an issue safety wise. We don't do enough of any work that would put you in a position that would be unsafe having earbuds in. I don't
yeah, that
really
talk
see a
with the
problem with
guy,
it.
that conversation that popped up about how the guy crushed something when he was lifting an engine job because he had both earbuds in, people trying to holler at him. He's not
Yeah,
paying attention anyway, Mister. Like
right,
the
right.
earbuds are not.
Yeah, I get it. If you're like putting engines in, transmission, something like that, you might want to take them out, be a little more attentive. But I don't know. That's just me, I guess. But a lot of these shops, I see the owners complaining. They don't want them, period. And some of them don't even want music. And I'm like, I don't know. They don't even want the radio on. I'm like, man, you
Yeah.
must be a peach to work for. I don't know. I don't know how those morning meetings go, but that'd be an interesting one.
It'd be nice to know. Like I should. Dave's shop on TikTok.
Oh yeah,
Wonder what
yeah.
his policy would be on music. So when we talk about the online thing, are there some, because he's been pretty popular as of late. What's some of the online stuff that you look at and you really enjoy, and then what are the other ones
Hmm.
you kind of watch and you're like, oh, like that just makes me really.
Man, I'm a cynic, so I try not to watch a lot of that stuff. I watch tried and true, man. I got Scanner Danner, I got Eric Ope, South Main Auto, and I got Ivan,
Ivan.
and I watch those three. If I'm gonna watch anything at all, I don't. I do watch some stuff, but like the TikTok stuff, man, I there's so much like shade being thrown around that I'm not even going to put myself in there because it just I make mistakes like everybody else, and if I go calling somebody out on it, they're going to find something that I did wrong and drag me down or whatever. So I don't, but they're I don't know per se a lot of the online stuff that I wouldn't agree with. I don't know because I just don't watch them.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, we get into that conversation about what's actually misinformation. Like I mean,
And
there's certain things.
there, yeah, there's a lot of misinformation that goes around, and I don't think that a lot of it is like with malice intent. I think a lot of it is just ignorance. Like and a lot of those guys that they may say something that's wrong or that we disagree with, but a lot of them they think like that because that's how they were taught, and they looked up to somebody that taught them how to do it that way, or that this was how things worked or whatever, and they never actually got set down and explained to them how that's not correct or whatever.
Yeah.
And so unless you're just blatantly out there trying to spread some misinformation on purpose, or trying to drag somebody through the mud over something like that, then there might be some issues with that. And I may make a comment or two, but I don't. Again, though, I don't post on the online videos or stuff other than on my Facebook. So I don't. I'm not gonna put myself out there for someone to try and drag me down through that crap because I make mistakes too.
Well, and that's like we have to be very careful, because I mean, like when I keep thinking of like what Keith is, some of the comments that have popped up over that airbag one as an example.
Yeah.
Also, some of the NASTA stuff. Like, what do you think about that? Like the NASTA thing?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't really have a problem with it. I know that there is a subset of people that disagree with it, and they're entitled to an opinion, and that's cool. I get it. We use OEM tooling for everything,
Yeah.
so I mean, I I don't really have a problem with it because I don't have issues with that stuff. If I have an issue trying to program something, it's because the server's down for TLC,
Yeah.
or Ford did a massive update and now my hard drive's nuked and I've got to send it over to Keith to get him to fix it. But I know there's a lot of opinions back and forth on it. I won't dig too deep into that because,
And the cost is prohibitive, right? For a lot of people
it,
to say, well, I just do it with OE. Well, OE is really expensive to be able to get
it,
out there and say, well, I can do anything and everything because,
yeah, it can be. And I get that. Granted, I don't pay for any of that, and we bill enough for what we do that it pays for itself.
I think that's the main thing that people.
I think a lot of it is people think that their consumer won't pay to have that job done because of the cost of it. I'm like, well, have you actually sat down and quantified how much it costs or how many jobs you have to do? Like if you're at a point where it's too expensive to program a Chevrolet, then you don't do enough Chevrolets
Yeah.
to make it worth it in the beginning. Like I don't, but you're a business. If they if they don't want to pay it, then I'm sorry, you're not my customer. And that's just the way I see it. Like, so I diag pretty much everything that comes through the shop. I do feed diags to Josh because I need him to be learning constantly like everybody else. And he primarily does our R&R work, but we gotta keep him learning. And I write all the tickets. And if I write a ticket up for $6,000 worth of work, it's because I meticulously went over the car and it needs $6,000 worth of work. I get it that your budget doesn't fit that, and that's cool. But I can't not tell you what's wrong with your car. But a lot of these folks, if it's a budget thing, I think, and nobody's billing enough to make it worth what it costs to do it.
Yeah, 'cause I don't think a lot of people realize you guys just don't like only say like you'll touch cars and check them out and sell the other work that it needs,
Yeah,
right? You're not
yeah,
just if it's not a broken wire or a diag, we don't do it.
right.
Like you
Yeah.
guys do everything at that
Oh yeah,
shop.
we do everything. We've got tire machines. Like I, we do everything that everybody else. We are a little more meticulous with it, and if there's an OEM replacement part available, that's all we will install.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where a lot of our customer base gets upset because they want to pay they don't want to pay for the OEM part. But we sell a lot of work, just between the two of us, we do quite a bit of mechanical work here at the shop. But a lot of it is, I put this module in my car, I need it programmed. Cool. If it's a car from another shop, I don't do inspections on them.
Right.
I only do inspections on them if they're a customer, like a walk-in or referral.
Right.
And even at that, if it's a customer that, I mean, you can kind of feel out your customers, that they're not gonna, they don't want you to work on their car. They just want you to do the program, the module they installed.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do an inspection on that car because they're not
Right.
a customer. They're just here for the programming, and then they're going to bounce.
Yeah.
And but yeah, we write up a lot. Most of the cars come through. I mean, they get wrote up pretty hard. And it's not for stuff that they don't need. It's all maintenance related stuff. I do a lot of mileage based maintenance write ups. Without knowing what their history is on their car because they're a new customer or their referral, it's kind of hard to sell some of that stuff because like, oh, I already had that done. Like, okay, cool. I didn't know that, but that's cool.
Yeah.
You don't have to, you don't have to get your car repaired with us. We'll do it if you want to, but.
And I find that that's such a fear thing that people get in. And it's like, I even talk to advisors and it's like, they don't want to sell this and they don't want to sell that in case the customer said, oh, I already had it done.
Right.
Like, let's be real. Some of these, transmission fluids, right, just to get a sample of them is a bit of a work, right?
Yeah.
So if I don't see anything wrong with saying to the customer, hey, you got 100,000 miles on it, like you should probably think about changing transmission fluid. If they say, oh, thanks, mister, but I've already had it done.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem. Like I can't think it's all that difficult to say, okay, sorry. We're just letting you know based on mileage, truthfully, it's yours is difficult to check. It doesn't have a dipstick. We're just letting you know based on mileage, it's something you should do. We're not trying to rip you off. People just need to be a little bit more forthcoming with saying those exact words. We're not,
I think customers have it so ingrained. I don't know where it started or where this began, but I think a lot of customers still think that everybody is just trying to write their car up for every little thing because, you know, we're a shop and we're there to rip them off. And I get that. Not every shop is intent to take your money, you know, just for stuff you don't need. And a lot of the stuff that gets wrote up is wrote up, like for me, you know, based on mileage. You know, like you're talking about transmission fluid stuff. I write up most newer 6 speeds and up. I'll write them up at 50K for
Oh,
trans
for
service.
sure.
You know,
Yeah.
40, 50K, and if they haven't brought it in, if we catch them at that, you know, great. If they're higher, I get kind of iffy with them because, you know, floating clutch material in your fluid and stuff can keep things alive even though they're already damaged. And
Yeah, for sure. Keeps
the
those.
whole,
Yeah.
you know, the whole back in the day, don't ever service your transmission because it'll go out. And like, well, it was already done for. It just had some, you know, particulate matter in it keeping it alive. But
Yeah.
yeah, we write up everything based on mileage, and obviously visual inspection is a lot of it. You know, we get a lot of work from, or a lot of referrals from other shops that have had work done, and either they weren't inspected real well or the work that was done was subpar or whatever. I'll write it up again for the same job. I don't care. You know, if I can see it and there's something wrong with the work that was done, then it's, you know, it's going to get wrote up. But we do pictures of everything. We kind of do a DVI process, so basically the car comes in. I do the inspections and the diag work, and then sell the jobs or don't sell the jobs or whatever, and then ship it to Josh. And if it's programming or something, if I'm not working on something else, I'll do the programming events just so he can continue on doing his mechanical work. Josh was mobile with us for a while, so he knows everything that I know. He's still learning diag stuff. He didn't get a lot of experience doing diag work at the shop he came from, and so not trying to get him filled in. He was a classmate of mine. Josh is very, very smart. He knows everything that I know. Just the hands-on part of it is still, he needs to get some more of the diag hands-on.
Yeah.
He's, you know, very intelligent. And so we just write them all up. And then if they buy it, they buy it. If they don't, they don't. I'm not, you know, it doesn't upset me. I guess, I don't know. It's because I'm hourly.
Now I gotta ask.
Yeah.
So you get a customer and they bring you, like, so you get one that comes in and it says, you know, install this module, and you go through in the process and it's like, you're like, I can't, you know, do this module. It's not communicating, whatever.
Right.
How does that go? What's the sequence? Like, do you call?
So we won't install anything unless we provide it. So they'll come in, they'll drive the car to us, and I'm like, you know, you're gonna have to put that in before we'll program it. And they'll go out in the parking lot and disable the car because they want a module program that will keep it from starting or whatever. And so they'll put their modules in. We'll program them. If there's an issue with it, I just stop and then I'll write it up for diagnosis. Testing, and it's not diagnosis. That's AutoZone. We do testing and analysis.
Right.
So write up for testing analysis. You know, again, you know, 400 minimum, depending on what it is. If it's a comm issue, depends on what it is. I'll write them up for a little more if they're a communication problem. Sometimes we'll do a 600 minimum for that, but it just depends. Depends on the scenario and what the car is and what the problem is. Right. If it's a single module, yeah, it's fine. We'll figure it out. But if it's more than one module, it's generally something's wrong with the car, not just that, and so it'll be more. But yeah, we just write it up for testing, and then it depends on who's free. I don't generally talk to customers unless it's absolutely requested. Generally leave that up to John. He's our service advisor. And what I'll do is I'll just fill out the ticket. We use Shopware, so I just transfer it to John, and then he'll call and have a discussion with them, and they'll either say yes or no. And if they say no, then, you know, we push the car out, and that's the end of it. They'll pay us for what we've done, and we don't do anything for free. You bring me the car for a programming event, you're going to pay for a minimum of programming event. whether the car is broke or not when it shows up. It doesn't,
Are still a
you
lot of
know.
people surprised when it's not like, the programmer didn't fix it, or is it starting to get?
Yeah, yeah. Some of them. We get a lot of, hey, my buddy told me I needed this, so we put this in, and then they bring it to us, and it doesn't fix it, it's no com or whatever, and then they're like, oh, well, I didn't fix it. No, it it needs diagnosed, and
Yeah. Because I can remember like I used to do hundreds of software updates, right? But there'd be an
yeah,
update on a car that was like 2 years old.
right,
And once in a while, you'd see a car come in that was like 4 years old, and it had an update might fix it. But I
right,
mean, that had been broke from that code for a long, long time.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like saying all of a sudden the car's 10 years old. All of a sudden it's got an oxygen sensor fault, and it
right.
needs to go get an oxygen sensor software update. That is not going to fix the car.
No, no, and I'm gonna be honest, it's not my problem to explain that to them. They know what they want when they bring them in. So the office staff talks with them. They bring it in for a programming. I get it. And it's a 2005, Chevrolet or whatever for a software update, and I'm like, okay, it'd be rare. And I actually had this happen at a dealership, and I I'm not a people person, so I kind of just tell them how it is, and nobody likes that, but yeah, this one car is kind of the same example. This car was a mobile job for a dealership, used car lot. It was a big dealership, but their used car side, and they had like a '06 Explorer Sport Track for a PCM update for like a purge valve complaint or something. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. I'll go update their '06 Sport Track, and then I get out there, and there's no update available because it's already been updated, and it's had like 6 purge valves thrown at it or whatever. And so I go in there, and it's a dealership. I try to, be nice, but if you're a shop calling us, generally I'm not as nice. Just being honest, it's different. And I just told them like, hey, there's no update available. Here's your bill, and they just, they're kind of taken back by it sometimes. Like you're charging me. Like, well, I drove out here and I hit the buttons, and I mean, you go to update a Ford, you're dang near going through the whole update
Yeah,
process to find out there's not an update.
that's right. Yep.
And so they're, and that happens. They get a little, I guess they can get kind of testy sometimes, but there's not any different procedure for that really. We just do what they ask, and it either fixes it or it doesn't. They pay us either way.
The last Ford I saw, it wasn't me, a coworker. Same thing. It was about what's that valve like map? I can't remember, but there's a valve.
Maverick, or the new Mavericks.
It was, I want to say, like a newer Escape kind of thing, one of those Eco
Mhm.
Boosts that had
Okay.
one of those. It looks like a purge solenoid, one of those
Oh,
valves.
it's a boost solenoid for the yep,
Yeah,
yeah.
and like went through the whole thing, and there's a software update, and so of course we're not programming through Ford, we were programming through the Snap-on Wrap,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a big to do to get that to
Right.
work and all that kind of stuff, and for them to go through and go, oh, yep, that's the most up to date to that. You still charged us,
Right. Yeah.
Snap people at Wrap still charge us, so of course,
Yep.
like, yeah, you're going to go charge.
Yep.
The fact that you go to the dealer, I mean, I know it's probably the same as when I was at the dealer. Like you can find the software number and you can punch it in somewhere, and they'll tell you if there's anything after that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not, that's just an oversight on their side.
We don't look anything up before we go out unless it's like something that we absolutely have never done before or something we've never heard of, just to make sure we have the tooling on the van. Yeah, we'll look it up. But for the most part, everything that we need is ready to go. We just go out there and punch buttons. And I don't, we don't check Cal IDs or anything. Like if it's a GM, they can do that, but they don't. They just, I don't know if most of it is just ignorance. They just don't know, and
Is there cars that will come to your shop for like programming or whatever that you guys will look at from a safety standpoint and go, no, we're not even interested in touching that? Because you see that kind of conversation pop up once in a while. And I know your shop's a little bit different, but
yeah. So we're in Oklahoma. We don't have inspections. We don't have any kind of government overreach on automobiles. The the cars come in, if it looks sketchy to me, I'd probably just won't drive it. But I'll do whatever they want us to do. I don't really care. We're just we're just here to facilitate what they want done. If it requires me driving the car though, and I know it's just not safe, I'm just not gonna drive it. And we'll call them and be like, hey, um, this is the state that your car's in. We just we don't feel comfortable driving your vehicle. I understand that you are comfortable driving your vehicle, but we are not. And we just move on to the next one. And if it just comes in for like a programming or something, that's fine. Whatever, we'll just program it and ship it. I don't test drive cars. If they come in for a programming, I just program it, and we take before and after photos when cars come in. So they show up before we even move the car. We take exterior pics, mileage, VIN, all that stuff. Put them in the ticket. We'll move the car, bring the car in, do the job. If it's just a programming job, I'll just take my exit pics, send them to John. John will call a customer like, "Hey, your car's done." Because if we didn't diagnose it, I'm not spending the time to make sure that fixed your car. That's not my problem. Right. It's on you.
That's fair.
If they want to bring the car to us, pay us to diagnose the issue. We'll do the repair and we'll verify that it's fixed when it's done. As with what you should be doing anyway. If you're working on cars, make sure they're fixed before they leave, and we'll do that. But I don't know. I've driven a lot of sketchy stuff. I own a lot of sketchy stuff, so I'm just kind of, my truck that I still drive today is 79 square body. It's Chevrolet, and I put a 5.3 in it like 8 years ago. It's my all over the state, drive it wherever truck. And my newest car is an 09 Lucerne, so I don't have a problem with sketchy stuff unless I'm like, I know I'm gonna die driving this thing. Like it's a straight up death trap. Yeah, that's different. But I work on a lot of old stuff, and they're all sketchy.
What's 2025 looking for you then going forward? Did you make some resolutions, or do you have some goals?
I don't know. I made resolutions last year. I don't even remember what they were, to be honest. I wanted to be. Personally, I wanted to be debt-free other than my mortgage. I did not achieve that. However, I'm almost there. I've got a little bit left. As far as everything else goes, I don't really have anything. I've got projects that I need to finish that have been not finished for a few years, but that's about it.
But the truck is done.
Oh, that truck's been, I've been daily driving that truck I don't daily anymore because L1 gave me a company vehicle, but I dailied that truck. I bought it from my wife's grandpa when me and her first started dating in high school.
That's cool as hell.
That was 2012. I think I've had that thing since 2012. I've been driving it ever since. I used to drive it all over. I drove that thing like, I don't know, it was 80 miles, 90 miles a day when I was going to college. And when I first started L1, I drove it from my house to Collinsville every day back and forth until I got a van. I had a 90-day probationary period, so I drove for a while, and then now that I've got a company vehicle, they pay for my gas. And
not great on fuel, that thing probably.
Actually, it depends on how fast you're driving. It gets about 18 to 20.
Shit.
If that truck's a lot lighter than an 05 Tahoe or Suburban was. I took the gears out of the back of a 98 342 rear gear set, dropped it in that 10 bolt that was in the truck, and then a 4L60 5.3 swap. They just bolt right in. You don't really have to do anything, but it does. It gets about 20 if you're doing the speed limit. I don't really drive the speed limit that often, but I do a lot of hunting, and during hunting season, that truck goes everywhere. It's my hunting truck. I threw a camper on it, and we just throw everything in the back. No, it's 2-wheel drive.
Yeah, see,
yep, just take it wherever. And actually, I hadn't done any maintenance on it in like
forever.
Well, yeah, since I swapped the engine into it, other than just oil changes. And the other day, I've been driving that thing around with one shock on the back because one fell off when I was hunting last year, and I didn't put one back on it. And I put I put another shock. Actually, I put 2 shocks on the back of it because we were getting fancy. But yeah, I did some maintenance on it. It's back up to par. I didn't realize how neglected it has been.
Yeah.
I've just been driving it, and I've got a bunch of other old stuff, and everything else just,
It's cool as hell, man.
I get fired up.
I tell everybody in like 2004, my daily was an 80 GMC half ton.
Yeah.
Now it was rotten as hell, and I should not have been driving it.
Well, it's a little different up there than down here. This thing, my truck, it doesn't really have. It's got some rust in it, but nothing like y'all get. We don't have salted roads or whatever y'all use, and we are, aside from the normal spots that dirt sticks in the quarter pan or the fenders and the bedsides. That's about it.
Yeah, Zeb shows me pictures of stuff he buys, like his old CJ and shit, and it's just like, you lucky mother.
Oh yeah, and things are like they're like fresh. They're mint. Yeah, it's insane. I've got a 56 F250 that I bought from my wife's grandpa about 3 years ago, and I mean it doesn't have a lick of rust in it. It's solid. It was a Kansas truck, and he bought it back in the 90s and drove it home. It's set forever. He never did anything with it because it was an F250 long box, and he's got a bunch of those 50s. Well, the 53 to 56 Ford trucks, and that one being a long bed 3/4 ton. He didn't really do anything with it, just set. I got it, and it's been an ongoing project. I ripped the motor out to have it rebuilt. My machine shop just kind of, I guess, forgot about me or something. So we reverted course, and I bought an RV off a friend that's got a 460 in it, and I'm just gonna.
You're not gonna LS swap the Ford?
No, I like my LSs. I got 2 cores, and I got another one over at John, my service advisor's house. He's got one sitting over there that I'm getting off of him. But no, I don't. I try to keep them somewhat in the family. I've got my father-in-law's a Ford guy, and he doesn't really do the whole fuel injection thing, and it's kind of sacrilege to him to do anything like that. He thought I was crazy when I went to put the fuel injection in my square body, even though he's, but
I mean, his don't get 20 miles a gallon.
No, and he doesn't drive his like I do. I drive the crap out of my cars. They don't really sit. They just go. But yeah, 460 and a C6, and I'm just going to drop it in there and see what happens. I've rewired it front to back, and most of the interior's kind of done. But
very cool.
I don't know. I like old.
Yeah. What's L1 looking to do for 2025?
Oh, work, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure what Keith and Liz's aspirations are for the year, but we're outfitting another van. We're looking for a service advisor because John wants to get back in the shop. He's service advisor isn't really his chosen role. It was kind of meandered into it. But he wants to wrench on stuff again, and so we're looking for somebody to fill service advisor spot so he can get back in the shop. And then I don't know what we're gonna do. I guess keep trucking on fixing stuff because
I'll be sure to reach out to anybody I know that's in your area that's looking for like an advisor role, because I think it would be a fantastic spot to end up. I think,
great place to work. I mean, we're not flat rate. We're all hourly, and everybody has a company car, and we just kind of show up, do work, and
I think it'd be an awesome spot.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to get Liz and Keith on in the very near future. So
I'm sure they'd love to.
We've been talking about it for
they're always stinking busy.
Oh, it's
as busy as they are. Yeah, that's the hard part, getting them free of whatever they're doing. Keith does a lot at the shop, just doing module work, and he, doing his thing, and I'm doing the shop work, and everybody's staying busy.
So what's in closing out, what kind of advice have you got out there for the technicians and the shop owners? Just a little bit of things from the mind of Zach that make it easier.
Stay accountable.
Well, good. Yeah.
Own up to your mistakes. Don't try to fix your shop with flat rate. It doesn't work. Um, the RF blocking paint in the bathrooms. I don't know that.
One ply toilet paper.
Yeah, I don't know if that helps either. But I guess if that's what you're into, um, just I don't know. I guess like everybody else, just learn. Keep learning, learn something new every day, and if you're struggling, kind of build a friend base of your
Yeah.
peers, because that greatly helps a lot.
Networking's key, man. It 100.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be half the tech that I am, and I'm nobody.
right. Yeah,
Or my friends that we can bounce ideas off and stuff like that. Like
right.
I'm no dummy, but I like as soon as I even think like I'm the smartest guy in the conversation, I probably leave the conversation because I just
Right.
I'm going to steer somebody in the wrong direction or give it a different perspective that I shouldn't. And it's
Yeah,
that's
I give disclaimers with everything I say, because I I may have thought that I heard something, but it may not be right. So just kind of take it, and you try it out, see if it works. If it don't blame me, because I don't know how to explain that else to you. But yeah, I think a lot of techs, they get kind of nobody's humble anymore. We're all kind of
that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
we're all hard headed and think we know what we're doing, but you
Well,
don't know.
I had the strangest thing. A listener reached out to me and he's like, I've got a young tech in the shop that's starting to get this kind of like rock star, superstar attitude. And he's 24 years old. And how do I get him back down to, a more humble state? And I said, I'm not sure you should ask me, because I'm not like, I'm all for a lot more techs, even the young ones walking around with their chest puffed out, right? Like
Hey
that's,
man,
I'm all
hey, if you want to humble somebody, go short a network on a newer vehicle and let
and
them
that's,
figure it out, because
yeah.
there's a there's a lot to be learned on these new cars. Once you think you know everything, you get your butt kicked on the next one.
And that's what I said to me. You kind of, unfortunately, it's going to take some jobs that you're going to have to
Mhm.
like throw them into the deep end and let them drown.
Yeah, quit. Don't help him.
Yeah.
Just make him figure it out, and,
And it's
and
going
but
to,
don't starve him. Don't starve
yeah,
him either. You got to pay him for that.
yeah,
If you want him to learn, pay him. But
we're all hourly. So, I mean, it'll work. But I
oh
said,
yeah,
I understand you might have to take the idea of a big profit on this job and just flush it, because you might have to pull them down a peg.
yeah,
It's going to
yeah.
suck. I mean, and don't get, if no one in the shop can solve it, don't take it in the first place. That's rule
Uh-huh.
number one.
Oh, for sure.
If he wants that 2 hours to give up, and that 2 more hours he might be there, don't take it from him. Put him back
Right,
on.
right.
I
Yeah,
think we got to do that more. I like when I think about some of those other shops I've been in. Sometimes it's just going to take tough love to say, listen, if you want to walk away from that job, you can walk away from it. But tomorrow morning, if you walk back in here, it's still going to be sitting there for you,
yeah.
right? And until we come to an impasse about what you really want to do here,
Right. Yeah, and there's a lot to be said for that, because you only learn a few ways, and I feel like one of the best ways is to get in there and try and figure it out. If you can't figure it out, find somebody that knows what they're doing and learn from them. Don't think your shit don't stink, and
That's right.
and learn something, because
If you've got your fundamentals, you'll get it.
yeah, you just won't get anywhere without humbling yourself. I think is a big part of it. I'm humbled every day. I work on a lot of paying cars, and I don't know how I figure some of them out. Again, like some of these are, I don't know if I just happenstance onto the problem, or I know we have a pretty solid process, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I think you have a process and you work the process, and I think
Mhm.
I think you're smart enough that you're going to get through it. It's just like you're like me. I think you look at it and you're like, oh man, I'm not ready for that. And the reality is we are. We just as soon as you remove the time quotient away from it, it's just like we are
Mhm.
ready for it.
Yeah.
And that's the
Well,
biggest thing.
you never know until you get in there and try it.
That's right. Well, man, I want to thank you for coming on here
Yeah,
today.
no
So
problem.
that was a lot of fun. Like I said, I hope to be able to sometime meet up with you in an event somewhere, and we'll sit down and
Yeah,
do another one of these, because it's a lot of fun in person. So
I bet.
but
Yeah.